Hey guys, so this came up. This is an extension of the first activity laboratory. This came up in a back and forth I had with a teacher concerning one of the activities that I sent in this activity laboratory. I thought it'd be helpful to go over how I differentiate with students the past simple and present perfect. I find this a very helpful way of differentiating because it's very direct for the students, and I've gotten much better results using this explanation. Basically, there are four timelines that cover any situation for past simple or present perfect, and that includes present perfect simple and continuous. So first timelines, we have past simple right here and right here. Essentially, this is for a specific time in the past, and this is for something that happens over a long time in the past. Now this is for past simple, not past continuous. Because what I find is, if we teach students that this is past continuous, later they start saying things wrong. So for example, what did you do last weekend? And if my student says, I was spending time at my dacha, that's wrong. That's wrong. So they should know that this is past simple and this is past simple. Past continuous is something different. If you're interested in that, let me know. I can do a video about that as well for maybe activity lab number 2. So these two are past simple and these two are present perfect, right here and right here. So essentially we have two situations in which we use present perfect. We have it happened before and when isn't important. And number 2, we have it started before, still now, and the future, maybe it will continue, we're not sure. It's unclear, it depends on the context. And I argue that these cover every situation in which we use present perfect. Think about how books generally break it up. We have present perfect for life experiences, right here. Present perfect with for and since, right here. Present perfect with yet and already, right here. Present perfect with unfinished time, right here. So rather than breaking it up only into these specific sections, when I go through these specific sections with students, I attach that understanding to these two timelines. Because what happens is, it gets too complicated. It's easy to overcomplicate this topic if we just give verbal explanations all the time. And students expect things like time phrases. They say, okay, with already. So a lot of times students will hear, with already you only use present perfect. And that's just not true. So, for example, if you say, Tom, if my wife says to me, Tom, can you feed the baby? And I'm like, oh, I'm already doing it. I'm already feeding the baby. So that's right now, because the situation is right now, and already is just a word that doesn't necessarily affect the tense of the verb because the situation is right now. So rather than attaching student understanding to these trigger phrases, I attach their understanding to these timelines for present perfect. It also works for present perfect continuous. So in the first timeline for present perfect, this is only present perfect simple. You can never use continuous here. Here, you can use present perfect simple or present perfect continuous. So let's think. If I have lived in St. Petersburg since 2011. Started before, still now, future maybe. I have been living in St. Petersburg since 2011. Started before, still now, future maybe. In this case, there's no difference in meaning. The facts are exactly the same. So you have two options sometimes, but sometimes the meaning is different. So, for example, if I get a question at work, let's say I get a question at work, and they say, oh, I heard you're doing some sort of activity lab. What's that going on? Oh yeah. I've worked on that. I've worked on that this week. This situation. I've worked on that this week. But if I say, I've been working on that this week, it's this situation. Sometimes there is a differentiation, which is why it gets so complex sometimes with students. Like, why is this one? What's the difference? And what we can do if we introduce these timelines for present perfect is we can just point to the timelines. So I've worked on that this week. Well, it's this week. What is the meaning? Well, it's right here. I've been working on it this week. Oh, it's right here. That's it. Because if we go into too verbose explanations, if we use too many words to explain it in every situation, we're going to have pages and pages of rules that the students will have a lot of trouble learning. So what I like to do is I give them examples of present perfect sentences and past simple sentences, and I make them attach those sentences to an outline. So here's a sentence, which outline does it represent? And I go from there and we build that sort of connection so that eventually they're filling in the blanks based on their understanding of which timeline it is. Then we get to present perfect continuous and they're able to differentiate between these two situations just like that. Because before I started doing this, it was a lot harder to get students to actually use present perfect because they didn't see the situation in which it was necessary. Because it's not always clear. There's not always a clear time phrase like yesterday. It's based on the situation and based on the assumptions of the person who is speaking, which means the understanding should be related to a more general idea of the time rather than specific phrases. So this has helped me a lot. Let me know what you think of it. I wanted to follow up with a previous activity that I sent with this video. So it's been great. Activity lab number 1 so far. And yeah, keep in touch.